Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. We're back with another interview with a fascinating person making a contribution to the environmental movement. And I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, your host. Today, we're going to talk with Jody Potts, who's an Alaskan native Han Gwich'in environmental and indigenous rights advocate, who was also recently named to the Explore Fund Council at outdoor gear maker The North Face. That council guides the company's grant giving. And Jody is working in particular to launch a new program, Native Youth Outdoors, that encourages Indigenous kids to get outside and involved with nature. With Indigenous Peoples Day this month, and with so much controversy swirling around protections of Alaskan wilderness, we're really excited to talk with Jody about the challenges and opportunities for positive change that she sees these days. Having trouble getting this out this morning, folks. And you can learn more about the Arctic, the Han Gwich'in people, and Jody's work at protectthearctic.org. That's one big long word, protectthearctic.org. And if you'd like to check out the North Face Explore Fund Council, go to thenorthface.com, all one word, thenorthface.com. Jody, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm fascinated to talk about the challenges of getting Indigenous kids outside, because it's tragic that they're staying indoors too. Now, you learn to hunt and fish on a subsistence basis in your community. How does that tradition live on? Is it strong and vibrant, or is it at risk because of the kind of indoor-centric digital environment that dominates our lives in the 21st century?
I would say, it just kind of depends family to family. I think that, there are a lot of young people that are learning our subsistence way of life and providing for our family and our community. But of course, there are some that are more urban-based families and youth that have moved away from their villages due to, a variety of reasons, economic hardship or what have you, maybe more opportunities for education in the city. I would say some of those young people might not have the same opportunity and access as those in the village have. And so, yeah, I would say, in the village, our culture and way of life around, hunting and fishing is still very strong.
And so I take it that some families have challenges getting their kids out, but then that many do successfully encourage their kids to get involved in nature. So in those cases, what does the Han Gwich'in experience offer as lessons for parents everywhere in terms of getting kids to look up from the gaming console and out at the world around them?
I would just say, like, how I was raised and how I also did this was, I grew up in a unique time where, even though I'm an American child of the 80s, I didn't have electricity for the first 5 years of my life. And my parents very much like 100% raised us on the land. So we had like different camps for each season that we went to. And my parents traveled on land by dog team and canoe and boat. And so, we were a part of the land as much as the animals were a part of the land. So we were very much centered around what the land provides us, and we took care of the land in return. Fast forward to me being an adult and having kids. I remember having a conversation with my kids when I was dropping them off at school one day. They said, everyone else in the school has a Nintendo Wii. We're the only ones that don't have a Nintendo Wii. And I said to my kids, I said, yeah, but has every one of your kids climbed mountains? Or your friends, have every one of your friends climbed mountains? Have every one of your friends traveled around the world, snowboard, ski, kayak? Has every one of your friends got their own caribou and gone hunting with their family? And they said, yeah, you're right. That's better anyway. And so I was like, woohoo, a little win right there, And so, I think, I was also a single parent for much of my children's lives. And I didn't even buy a TV for us for years. And so it just wasn't my priority. And so, I think what families, I guess, and what I did is like, well, these are my priorities. My priority is to, have active, healthy kids, learn some skills, create this relationship with the land that I had. And so not having these other distractions, was just really a blessing. And so, you know, in the evenings, my kids were outside playing and, weekends and free times that we had, we are out in kayaks fishing and doing things like that.
So it sounds like really the keystone of this is that nature is part of the family and family is part of nature is the way to think about
for
this.
us, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so
And that's very much an indigenous um perspective or indigenous value. That's our existence.
well, and I think that that indigenous perspective that being in place in nature is something that it's very difficult to translate into a city dweller's experience. How is the work you're doing with the Explore Fund oriented to breaking down the barriers to exploration within those communities or in the parks in those communities or the wilderness nearby? What kinds of investments is the North Face making in order to help encourage them?
Well, I think there's several things here, and especially you mentioned urban centers in the beginning. I think, well, I know that there is such a lack of access, opportunity, and availability for, especially communities of color in urban centers to enjoy the outdoors, to have that experience for a variety of reasons. One being, you know, uh, environmental racism. Cities don't plan
Mhm.
in communities of color or poverty to have, quality green space like they do in more wealthier, um, you know, uh, communities. And so that's a challenge. Um, I think the other thing is, the North Face. Just is ahead of so many other companies by recognizing this and not only recognizing it, but wanting to, create solutions and put a plan into action. And so that's what this Explore Fund is doing, but I think someplace like out here in Alaska, um, I, the North Face has engaged and done work
Mhm.
with some of the Native organizations here in Alaska that are protecting public lands, such as the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Um, and so that's greatly appreciated because that is sacred land to my people. And we are trying to protect it in order to protect the caribou herd, which give birth in the area that um, that oil companies want to develop for oil. That's really important key partnership is when companies like the North Face, who have athletes that greatly value and appreciate these public lands that are under threat, and they understand the value one as this pristine public place, public land, that they also enjoy outdoor recreation. But then it's also a place for Indigenous peoples that we hold as sacred and that we value in a different way, but we both value them. They may have different reasons why they're highly valued and why we want to protect them, but we find that common ground and we're able to work to achieve that protection.
Now, one of the challenges with encouraging getting out in the wilderness is that, of course, there are a lot of people out in the wilderness. How should we behave, uh, and how can we build programs that will get kids out in particular to understand how to preserve and protect nature, not simply to exploit it? And I would point to the example of national parks now, which are literally traffic jams. And I would not want to see that happen with ANWR, the Arctic National Wildlife Reserve. Uh, where where's the limit in terms of how much people can get involved in nature without contributing to damaging nature?
I think, a big key element is um, you know, teaching our children, and whether it's our children or youth we're engaged with through these variety of organizations or any people, is just to come from a place of respect. You treat that land like you would treat your home. You wouldn't walk into your home and spit on the floor. You wouldn't walk into your home and just throw trash. Well, at least I would hope you wouldn't, right? It's just not common. And you treat the place like your home and like the place that you might sleep or eat. And so I think that's a very basic. But I have, I think up here in Alaska, we're very blessed where we have tourists in the summer. We have a great number of tourists that come up here in Alaska in the summer, but I have never experienced a public land space here in Alaska that have these traffic jams. I've heard of that, but I've never seen it, and I don't know what that's like or looks like.
It's pretty striking. Mount Rainier National Park, which is near my home, sometimes it's a 45-minute wait to get into the park. I was also speaking with somebody who was at Glacier about a month ago, and the entire park was bumper to bumper. So it's a really concerning problem. And so that hasn't reached Alaska yet. I just hope it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would just say that, obviously that's like probably a national park, management plan that they need to probably review. But of course, people want, I think, especially during, this pandemic, people are trying to get outside more, and they're starting to have a higher value of being outside and communing outside. And I think that's really, really important. And while they're out there, just hope that they remember to leave no trace, and to respect those places like their own home, and act as if their own grandmother is there with them, and place high value on those places.
So how does Native Youth Outdoors encourage Indigenous youth to get involved with nature?
I think, there's a lot of, kind of alluding to what we spoke about in the beginning. There's a lot of Native youth that have an understanding of our hunting and fishing way of life. Some in the urban areas may not have experienced it, but they know that it's a part of our way of life and being. One thing that I have noticed, I've been very fortunate in my life to also learn to snowboard, and have snowboarded all over the lower 48 and the Rocky Mountains, and I've done a lot of hiking and mountain biking, and some of these outdoor recreational activities. I've been very fortunate to have some of those really great experiences, which is very different from the way I am on the land when I'm hunting, recreation versus way of life, right?
Yeah, well, you mentioned earlier that you have been on a moose hunt recently, and that your family goes out and does that. Does Native Youth Outdoors engage the family to get the kids outside, or does it create programs where the kids go out together but not with their family?
So Native Youth Outdoors basically was an idea my kids and I had. I taught my kids how to snowboard. We go out both snowboarding and hunting, right? And we notice when we're snowboarding and at resorts or different places, we are the only people of color. We are the only Indigenous people in these spaces. And I see how, whether we're snowboarding, how it just improves our quality of life. So my kids and I said, man, let's try to teach more Native kids. Let's try to get more Native kids out here, because, while urban kids, in Fairbanks or Anchorage might not have the opportunity and access to go hunting and be on the land, there are outdoor recreation opportunities that they could learn now and have the rest of their life and improve their quality of life. And so we started doing free snowboard clinics, and we had a really just I mean, even a wait list, more than we could handle. And the idea with it was, like I had said, my kids and I said, we are the only natives out here. Like, what is wrong with that? That's a problem. What are the barriers? Of course, the cost, the opportunity, sometimes even just planting that seed. And so, we were able to provide free instruction for my kids and I. My oldest son and I are snowboard instructors. And so, we were instructors and my daughter assisted us and we provide the instruction for free. And then we had people, that were donating in order to buy their lift ticket. We had, Smart Wool sent up a bunch of, really high quality wool socks and face warmers. And, a lot of these kids don't even have the proper gear to be comfortable, doing these kind of activities. And so, there's just a variety of barriers. And with Native Youth Outdoors, we're trying to address those to enable more Native youth to get out in outdoor recreation experiences. And in the future also, we're hoping to teach more traditional indigenous outdoor clinics, and basically life skills and lessons that they could also use in the future.
So your work, you mentioned several donations from business in what you just said, and your work with the North Face. Has that changed your perspective on the role that business and that consumers can play in protecting wilderness?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the places that people who enjoy outdoor recreation, that they want to go and, enjoy their sport or their experience. There's so many places, I think, especially under the previous presidential administration, that were under threat, where we were losing lots of public land. I don't even remember the millions of acres that public land was being shrunk by in the previous administration. So, yeah, excuse me, there are a lot of things that people can do in order to protect those public lands. And there's a lot of organizations that they can engage with, that they could join on actions or by sponsoring or funding and supporting. And so, for every outdoor public space, there is a nonprofit that is working to also maintain and protect those lands.
Now, you mentioned the rollback of some of the Trump era decisions, like they are protecting Anwar again, and the Pebble mine, which was going to potentially pollute one of the biggest salmon runs in the world, has been canceled. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like we've turned a corner, or is this just a pause before we start back down the path of destroying nature?
I try to be optimistic and hopeful, mm-hmm. But I also have to be realistic and understand that, there, especially with, presidential proclamations, those aren't permanent. And so what we're really seeking for some of these places is permanent protection, not just, during this presidential administration, you're safe for 4 years until the next administration removes these protections. Like, it would be really nice if we could, for some places that are continually under threat. Gwich'in people have been fighting for upwards of 4 generations to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge from oil extraction. And so, ultimate goal is permanent protection. And so we are kind of enjoying this little bit of a break, because under the Trump administration, we're working really hard. And it was really challenging and stressful. But I just hope that, we can get this current administration to do more permanent protections.
How can listeners...
And it's, it's more than just the administration, it's Congress as well.
Sure. How would you recommend that our listeners help with those campaigns to protect the Alaskan wilderness? And are there organizations or efforts that you think make a bigger difference that they should pay attention to?
Well, one, educate yourself on these issues. And so, as you had mentioned before, go to protectourarctic.org and see what you can do. You can donate to, say, the Alaska Wilderness League, of which I'm a board member of. And they do a lot of really hard work to protect public lands in Alaska. But also, write your representatives, whoever your congressional representative or your senator is, write them and make it known, and seek those opportunities to get involved and fight for protection.
Now, are there ways for our listeners to get involved in specifically with the Explore Fund projects and help accelerate those? Can they also do contributions that maybe explore or that the North Face matches?
Yes, I think that there are ways that the listeners can get involved for sure. I don't know if there's a matching program. I'm sorry to say I don't have the answer to that. However, they will see the organizations that we will be sponsoring and funding in the next month or two. And I just encourage them to really look at the organizations. There's so many that are doing some amazing work with underprivileged, underserved people. And, this is all about equity and inclusion. And, I just really hope that, our listeners today will look at what we're doing and will find value in it, and also want to work with some of the organizations or fund some of them as well.
Well, we'll include links in the article that goes with the podcast so people can follow up. And I want to thank you for your time. Could I ask, as we close, could you share a piece of advice or a couple of pieces of advice for listeners who want to do something today or this weekend to get engaged constructively with the wilderness? What would you recommend?
I would say, if possible, go out on the land somewhere and just listen. Just if you're at a place where you can just sit, close your eyes and listen, and and then just seek in that time, seek an opportunity to do something that would benefit the earth. And that may sound kind of a little new agey or something like that, but I think that really does matter, and that really can help improve our world, because the earth is just under so much threat with climate change, and we need to place more value on protecting earth. It's our only home. So go out, sit, and just listen quietly, and just see how that improves your quality of life, and see if you get any ideas or thoughts on how to help.
Well, Jody, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
We've been talking with Jody Potts. She's an Alaskan Native Han Gwich'in environmental and indigenous rights advocate. You can check out her work at protectthearctic.org, and as well, the North Face's Explore Fund Council and what they do in terms of funding different programs around the country at thenorthface.com. We'll be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, I hope you're going to take some time today, share these ideas, as well as get out there and do that sitting and reflecting in nature, because just letting the wind move around you with your eyes closed while your ears are open to what's going on can be, not necessarily is, but can be a profound experience. Share these ideas with your friends, neighbors, family, strangers on the street. Let's get everybody thinking about what we can do to make our world a sustainable and prosperous one. This is Earth911 Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe. We'll be back soon with another interview. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.